Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside.
Welcome to another episode of The Shop. Our 2000 XJ over here has started to develop an interesting problem. Under quick braking, like coming to a stop street, every now and again the left rear wheel just suddenly locks up. In today's episode we are going to open up the drum brake over here and take a look at what's going on inside. This is an interesting issue because when you apply the brakes and you stop, all the other wheels work just fine. It's only this one that's locking up. And to show you what's going on, I've attached a GoPro over there and we're going to go down the road and actually show you how this locks up. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the wheel and the drum brake off. Now I'm not going to go into great detail as we do that. It's a pretty simple process. You take the wheel lugs off, you pry the brake drum off, and then we'll see what's inside once it all comes apart. With the drum off, we can see that there's no abnormal signs of wear anywhere on this drum. It's still looking good, so the drum is good. And then if we take a look at the pads over here, or shoes, we'll see that there's no anything major on any of these shoes. They all still look pretty good. The springs are all still good, they're all still in place. So there's nothing obvious that I can see wrong with this wheel end. Now the only thing that I can note is way at the back over here, there's a little wear pad and it makes it very, very hard to move these side to side like I'm doing now. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to disassemble this wheel end, take all the springs off, and then I'm going to go inside and make sure that all of these pins are well lubricated and that they can adjust as they need to. So to further inspect the brakes, I need to remove the brake shoes. Now in order to do this, I use a long nose locking pliers like this one, which I'll clamp on these springs and then pull the springs off. I'm sure there's many ways to do this and you probably get a special tool, but for me this is the easiest and quickest way to get this done. Right, so to get this off, what you do is you grab the locking vise like this onto that pin over there, and then with a bit of force you can pull it back and undo the spring. And you drop the spring kind of down to get the tail end out. And then just make sure that you keep the right springs on the right side. So I'm going to put this down here. It goes to the left. And then we're going to grab this one. And we're going to do exactly the same. Now what I didn't show you is the blooper reels and how many times this slipped off and I fell over. But you're going to do exactly the same. And you're going to pull the spring off like that. Same thing. Drop it down and pull the back out. Now as you do this, this park brake mechanism is going to come loose too, so I take it off and just watch out. At the back there is this little plate for the park brake. It needs to come off with a spring. Okay, and as I said, remember to keep them on the right sides over there. Now the next thing that we need to do is take off these two little retainers over here. And the easiest way that I've found to do that is to just grab them with the pliers, you push them in, and you rotate them and slide them off. Come off now. And there we go. So the spring pops out, and then just be careful at the back. You have to remember the pin. So this one goes to the right. And the same over here on the left side. There we go. So there's the spring and retainer. And don't forget the pin. Right, with all of that loose, we can now take this and just very gently remove it from around the hub, and our Park brake over here remains behind, so we can set that down. And then at the top over here is this bar that needs to come out, so don't forget to take that out. And importantly, to check that it's got its spring on it. The first thing to inspect is the actual brake shoes. And there's nothing obviously wrong on these shoes. These little wear pads over here do have a little bit of corrosion on them, so certainly we can add some lube onto those. And then this automatic adjuster over here is still loose, it's rotating, but it does feel a little tight. So what I would like to do is to take this apart and put some more lubricant on that so that we can ensure that this automatic adjuster is working the way it was intended. So in order to get this automatic adjuster out, the first thing we need to note is which direction it is. The thick side is pointing to this clip over here, so we can put that back together that way. And then in order to get it out, all we're going to do is squeeze it open and just slide it out. Just so that nothing else falls apart, I'm going to slide off this adjuster. Note that this pin was pointing upwards. And then we'll drop the spring out. So that's the order that we have to put it back in again. I can now go and clean up all of these contact surfaces over here, ready for some fresh brake grease to be installed. With the automatic adjuster out, you can see that there is still the evidence of the never seize that I put back on there when I installed it, and on this side it's still free to turn. What I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to take this apart, clean it back up, and put some high temperature brake grease and some never seize back in there to make sure that these remain open and free to turn. So to clean this up, we're just going to grab a wire brush, just remove all the dirt. And then we can take this whole thing apart. So unscrew this. Just interestingly, this one is reverse thread. Just don't get confused when we're putting it back in. Look how long that thread is. All right, and that side's going to pop up. We're going to hit this now all quickly with some brake clean, just to get this cleaned, and then we'll start the reassembly. So to do this reassembly, I'm going to do two different products. One is never seize, and we'll use that where there is only relative motion and we don't need to carry load. The other is brake grease, where we actually need to carry load. So on these threads, I'm going to use brake grease, but on this little pin, I'm going to use never seize. So, right, we're going to just put a little bit of this never seize on there. That. And then we'll just put a little dollop on the inside. Okay, and then wipe off the excess so we don't make a mess. Alright, that's the easy one. The next one is that thread. And as I said, I'm going to actually use brake grease on this. You don't want to put too much on, because if you put too much on, it's just going to mess everywhere inside the brakes. So just a little stripe on there and a little bit on the inside. And then we can screw this pin back in again. And just remember, as it was when we took it apart, it's reverse thread, so you got to screw it the wrong way. All right, and we have that drop out. Right, so this is ready for a reinstall. We're going to move back to the brakes. So we can now go through and check for anything wrong in this hub. The first thing I want to do is check for any leaks from our slave cylinder. And there's definitely no leaks from our slave cylinder. So we've eliminated that as a cause. Everything else on this wheel end looks really, really good, except that we're missing some of the lubricant. You can see some of the lubricant I put on there when I put these brakes together. So we're just going to go ahead, clean all of those surfaces up, and reassemble these brakes. So before we get started with the reassembly, we just want to go ahead and clean up all of these little spots. So on the shoes, what we want to do is we just want to clean off any of the old lubricant that was on there. So we're going to start the reassembly. We're going to place this into its little slot over there. and the little slot on that side. And as I said, remember the thick side goes that way. The next thing that we're going to install over there is this spring to hold those two together. That's going to go in there, and that cannot be. So you can see where I had the spring here, you see it's making contact with the adjuster over there, so that's wrong. So this spring needs to come out. It needs to be moved to this hole over here. So just make sure when you're assembling that you don't have the spring making contact with this ratchet device over there. The next thing that comes on is that plate for the brake, so that's going to stay there. So for now, this part is ready for us to use in assembly. We're going to turn our attention back to the backing plate. So last time I did this assembly, I used Never Seas on these surfaces, but as you can see, so that's dried out. So this time around, I'm actually going to use my grease on these surfaces to see if it will stay greasy for longer. So you don't want to put too much on here because you don't want it to get into contact with the actual brake shoes, but you certainly want to make sure that these surfaces are lubricated before you start your reassembly. So usually when I assemble the brakes, I actually build them together in place on the backing plate. I'm going to try and do something a little bit different. I don't know if this is going to work, so I might have to do it over 2 or 3 times. But what I'm going to try and do is actually assemble this sub-assembly into place over here. Okay, so let's see if we get this over there. Right, now what I don't know is how to get this park brake in. Right, so we just want to capture this detail. If you see, the park brake needs to extrude through that hole over there, and then on this crossbar you now have the park brake and the shoe, and we need to make sure that this cross piece captures both of those as we install them. So you can see right now it's only on the park, and we need to make sure we capture both like that, and then up at the top here slide that into position. On this side we have to now make sure that the cross piece catches both of those. Then we should be able to slide this assembly closed in place. There we go, just like that. Great stuff. So what I'm going to do now is just hold it by hand over there. Right, so in order to get all of this together, we now have to slide this over the pin. So we're going to use the same way we took it apart. We're going to grab our pliers, and now we just got to align that pin, the head of the pin, so that we can just slide it on. Right, so we've got the one on, now we need to go to the other side. So it's quite a mission to get these retainers back in, and it's very important that once they're in, you check that this little cross piece is sitting in its slot at the back there and not able to jump back out again. And same with this one over here, you can see it's sitting 90 degrees to the slot, so it's in its little depression back there to make sure those are nice and tight. Also just make sure that over here we've got both the park brake as well as the shoe, and on this side we've got the spring properly compressed behind the shoe over there. The next thing we're going to do is reinstall the park brake. So we need to just put a little bit of lubricant on over here at the back, and that is where this guide plate for the cable is going to go. So we're going to lube that up and then install this spring next. Reassembly is fairly simple. It's just the reverse of what we did taking it apart, remembering to put the brake grease in wherever we need it. Okay, so the last step in the adjustment is to set the brakes using that adjuster at the bottom. Now, in order to do that, you've got to pry out this little rubber plug, and that gives you access to that ratchet at the back there. Now, it's very hard to see with the camera. We're going to try and see if we can get you in there to see. So it's a bit hard to see, but if you look inside there, you can actually see the teeth of that expanding ratchet. So what we're going to do is we are going to adjust the bottom of the shoes until it just catches on the wheel, and then back it off 1 or 2 clicks. It takes a few times to get this setting correct. What we found worked best is to adjust it until the wheel stops turning, then back it off 2 or 3 clicks and take it for a test drive.
Let's think it's sitting in.
You may need to do this over a few times to get it set correctly. Alright, and there you have it. It's not locking up anymore. So I'm not exactly sure what we fixed. We did the lubrication and the adjustment, and between those two we have resolved the issue, and this wheel is not locking up anymore. Brakes are very, very good, and so our XJ is back to normal operation again.
Enjoy your life. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They want to rise up while you drown. They want to fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing. Won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless.